So how'd you get your start in theater? I know I read I think I read an interview you did with like the Northwestern paper that said that you got started there like doing the Cherubs program and yeah.
Yeah, I mean that was basically my introduction to theater in general, as something one could do, not just something one, you know, as something one could do. I mean, obviously I'd seen theater my whole life, but it doesn't occur to you that that's something you can do,
right?
In the same way that it, you know, it might not occur to you that you could, you know, be a monk in Tibet, even though you know they exist.
Yeah. And when you started it, were you just like, this is it? Like, was it an immediate calling?
Yes.
For you? Yeah. That's fantastic. Well, because you also, I know you started out in your career as an actor too, and then you slowly transitioned. Like, what was that transition like? Did you always know did you always have like a calling to direction? Were you fed up with being an actor? Like, what inspired the transition?
What inspired the transition was, so I had done some directing before. All the directing that I've done has always been by necessity. I consider that I'm still directing by necessity, which is why it is a calling and not, you know, acting was a career, directing is a calling. I started directing in college by necessity. And so I directed the first Black musical at Northwestern because it hadn't been done, and that didn't make any sense in 1995. So I had to produce it and direct it and create it and get all the people and do all the things and pay for the rights and just do it because like no one was gonna do it.
Right.
And no one had done it, and I did not see it being done in the foreseeable future. So I had to do it. And that's pretty much how things have always been. But I really enjoyed my acting career. I still do some acting once in a blue moon. You know, I'll do some on-camera stuff or whatever, because it's really hard to get back on stage. That's like impossible because of scheduling. But yeah, so that career was good, but I was in rooms, you know, just saying like, why is it like this? I don't understand why it's like this.
Yeah.
And then I've always been somebody that just puts their money where their mouth is. So I got kind of sick of thinking things that I was like, you know, that's kind of shady. Like, see if you can do better. Can you do better? And so I had to like try. Because I don't like to sit around and think like, oh, I wouldn't do it like that. Like either like shut the fuck up or like do the thing. So I ended up doing the thing. And then I could not get hired to save my life as a director. So I had to create a company and again, go broke and pay for the thing and create the thing and get all the people and make the thing. And then when I made the thing, people were like, oh, wow, that's really good. And I was like, cool, I'm super broke now.
Yeah.
And that's how my career happened.
That's incredible. I mean, wow, it's a testament to how much of a trailblazer, but also like it just sounds like I love that philosophy of like not asking for permission or just saying like this has to be done. So I'm going to be the one to do it since no one else is going to do it.
Oh, I asked for permission. The answer was no.
So right. I guess not taking no for an answer is the better way to put it. What do you like? What was the feeling behind sorry, think about how to phrase this.
Breathe, slow down.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard from a lot of Black theater makers, particularly, like there's like a similar story, you know, in like frustration with direction that isn't sensitive or like even aware of like certain portrayals, and then also frustration, like, you know, certain like like just being rejected or typecast or like put in this box. um what was your experience, what has been your experience with that? Was it's like with your career, so much of it, like, is, you know, with schoolgirls, with lottery dice, is been focused on like, uh and even like that first production at Northwestern, focusing on like bringing Black voices and like Black stories to the table. How much of that, like, uh I guess, like, what was your genesis like born out of like responding to like these kinds of rejections? Like, do you think that like race had to do with it? I guess it's a question.
I mean, I
I don't know.
sort of don't have the luxury of saying race
Yeah.
doesn't have to do with anything in my life.
Right. Right.
So I wouldn't know. Like, you know, whenever anyone is speaking to me, uh, I don't have the luxury of being like, I wonder if they're saying that because I'm Black. I'm Black and they're saying it. So
Right.
what do I, you know, we wouldn't be having this conversation if I wasn't Black, right?
That's true.
So
Yeah.
like it's kind of one of those things. I'm like, well, I'm in my Black body. I
Mhm.
don't know why. Like, I don't know why the world does what it does.
Right. Right.
I'm in my Black body 100% of the time.
Uh, yeah. Are you, so for this class we had to read, I don't know if you're familiar with Keith Hamilton Cobb and like American More. Okay. um it's a really fantastic play. He's a wonderful actor too, but he wrote it out of a response to like frustrations with like Othello particularly. And I know you were an assistant director of a 2016 production of Othello with the Chicago Shakespeare Company. What was your experience working on that play? I mean, it's so fraught, like the like how even to put it on, there's so many questions. Some thinkers like, or, you know, I don't know if you're familiar with Ayanna Taylor. Ayanna Thompson. She's also a director, and she was like, I don't think Othello should be put on because there's no way to like make it not like to have it be like a positive, have a positive portrayal of like of Blackness, or a way that's like not charged. And like
I
there's
mean,
questions about how
I
to
don't know.
stage it. I
I
don't know,
disagree.
that's
But
just
also,
her
I'm
opinion.
not
I
somebody
would.
that needs everything to be positive.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, well, what was your experience working with it, like, and I guess with Shakespeare more generally?
my so I don't have a lot of experience with Shakespeare because
Mhm.
I have not, again, like I guess I would have to start my own fucking Shakespeare company if I want to
Right.
do Shakespeare.
Right.
Because I've tried a lot for a long time and the hurdles are literally endless. One would say I was mentored at Chicago Shakespeare Theater. Barbara Gaines is a great friend of mine. We have a fantastic relationship. I absolutely revere her. Will she hire me to direct something? Who knows? Like, will she ever? I don't know. First it was, you know, but this woman has given me free folio classes because she thought I should have them. And then I did this thing called Folio for Directors, which actually wasn't a class at all. It was basically like sitting around dishing dirt with Larry Yando in this sort of thunderdome of who she, you know, who Barbara thought was like junior directors. And if you
Mhm.
looked around, it was like, you know, it was sort of everybody that was coming up at that time. And I remember being like, oh, this is really interesting. Like, we're not learning anything, but like the gang's all here. I often wondered
Uh-huh.
if there was like a close, like a little secret camera in the room
Yeah.
to just see who was cool. Because it was literally
Yeah.
like me, Marty Lyon, Vanessa Stallings,
Oh,
Scott
that's so
Weinstein,
awesome.
Matt Hawkins, Ellie Green, like Everybody was in that room. Everybody was in one room. I was like, wow, you could blow up the next generation of Chicago theater. Like if you roll around in here, Chicago theater is dead. Like
Right.
it was really wild. So and then everybody from that class started getting assistant directing jobs or TYA, right? But ain't nobody on the main stage because it's just like Steppenwolf. They don't actually hire anybody really from here to direct on the main stage. Not anybody. You get TYA or you're an assistant.
That's so.
And nobody seems to notice, but it's like, I just look at it. Like it, name one person, name somebody.
That's so strange. I mean, you still
Strange is not the appropriate word.
Not the appropriate word, because I mean, it's
very deliberate.
I guess it could not be, right? If nobody's
right.
getting hired. Right.
It could not be.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate.
I mean, it led to a lot of other great, or like you didn't let the door be closed in your face. That's pretty incredible. But like you did a few assistant directing. What did you see then already? Like, oh, there's no way to move up. Did you think like, oh, I should stay? Was there even a thought of staying in the Chicago Shakespeare Theater? Or was it
well, there's no staying in. I'm not on the staff. So everybody you're talking to is probably freelance. So there's no like, so you take the job, you don't take the job. I took the job because I wanted the job. I loved working with Jonathan Munby. We had a hell of a hoot together. Like it was a fun time. I was working with one of my dear friends, James Vincent Meredith, who was playing Othello. I wanted that job. Like I didn't take that job grudgingly. I don't take any job grudgingly. I take the job if I want the job. I don't take the job if I do not want the job. When you go broke building your own thing and then your board is terrible, so you have to then walk away from that thing that you bent your whole life to make. The one thing you do get out of that, the one takeaway you get from that is that you are not afraid to like just make choices and say no, because like you discover that you will not die. So like I do pretty much what I want because I found out I won't die if I don't take some job that seems really important and big and huge, and or if I don't work for a hot minute, it'll suck, but I will not die. I will be okay. So I just so I took that job because I wanted it and I loved it. I had a great time. I learned so much from Jonathan Munby. He is such a genius. And he gave me a ton of responsibility, which is what I wanted. Like we talked before I even, we sort of interviewed each other via Zoom because he's in London before I took the job. And he was just like, I think we should talk. And I was like, I love that you think we should talk before, like you're not just like hiring some random person you never met. We should be interviewing each other because I don't know you either. What if I don't want to work with you?
Right.
And we had a really good Zoom and we could just tell. And and he had worked with my friend Marty, and Marty had been like, he's sweet, but it wasn't quite a fit. And he and I were a great fit. So he really gave me a ton of responsibility, which is exactly what I wanted and needed, because I needed a challenge. And the great thing about working on that show was this director is going away. Like he's leaving the country. So as associate director, my responsibility wasn't just like, okay, train up these understudies and make sure they're ready to go on, as well as be in the room and give notes and like assist him. But it was like, he's gonna leave after opening night and then the show is completely yours. And I wanted that. That was why I was like, this is the match I want, because I want him to go. Like I want to work with somebody who's going away and then I get to take over the show. And at the way they do things, the way they do it at Chicago Shakes is kind of a big operation. Mm-hmm. So I learned a lot about like, oh, okay, this is how to take over this show. And these are the things I have to do. And it was really, really cool.
That's fantastic. So you had a lot of, you had a lot of creative control over that production then, the Othello production?
No, I
Or
wouldn't say I
no?
had a lot of creative control. No.
Oh, I see. Were you but you were, I'm sure you were in like the like discussions about it. What were some of the discussions that went on about like how to stage that, if you remember? If you don't, like that's fine too.
What were some of the discussions about how
Well,
to stage it?
I mean, just like because Othello, like there are choices to be made in, in directing Othello in this class that this is all a part of, and like it's I mean, this project is in is a long-term project at the
Mhm.
University of Chicago. It's like a scholarly project, and it's leading to a production at the court of Othello that's going to be premiering later this year. But also, just more generally, like our Professor NDIA, is a scholar of like black, like depictions of blackness in early modern theater, and
Mhm.
especially like Shakespearean, like Shakespeare's like black characters. And Othello is like, I mean, it
Shakespeare's not early modern theater.
well, early modern English, I guess. Maybe not. I mean, Shakespeare is a big figure
In this
for
class.
yes. I
Well,
mean,
that's
the
interesting.
class is actually called Black Shakespeare. So
Oh,
we're reading a
are
lot
you
of
in the theater department?
no, I'm not. I'm a creative writing major. I'm an English major, and
Gotcha.
yes.
Okay. Okay. That makes tons of sense. Okay, cool. And this class is called Black Shakespeare, and they're exploring what? Black people in Shakespeare?
And also like reimaginings of Shakespeare plays. So
Mm.
we read Toni Morrison's Desdemona.
Hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's like,
I'm
yes.
very familiar with it. I pitched it at
Oh, no
Chicago
way.
Shakespeare Theater.
Really?
Hmm.
And did they denied it? It's a that's I mean that's a I that is it's a fantastic reimagining. I and it answers a lot of questions, but it also gets at the heart of a lot of the complications of putting on Othello, I feel like, too. Because
You
there's
can call it a
questions about
reimagining, right? Like I think, and we have to deal with this a lot in theater, particularly with Shakespeare. Shakespeare really lends itself to concepts. It really, Shakespeare is like a really fantastic mannequin. Like you can put a lot of different clothes on it, okay? Um, and that's not to say it's not substantive. I think it's just that its substance is so fundamental and basic, right? We're talking about like love, betrayal, jealousy, grief, war, like we're
yeah.
talking about these like really fundamental things, and therefore it sort of lends itself, especially because I think also, you know how sometimes like if you do something like paint your nails green, right, like a really crazy acid green, right, a color you'd never wear. Okay, well now they kind of go with everything because they go with nothing.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
sort of part of like what the Greeks and Shakespeare are now, right? Like we're so divorced from this time period, this language, and the way these people do things that like nothing seems ridiculous, right? Like if you were doing it in 1700, you might be like, oh, what are you doing? She would never wear that. Like,
Uh-huh.
right? People would be like, oh, you can't change this. But we are so divorced from it now that like it's open to all sorts of change because our brains are fine with that. And in fact, it helps our brains, right? Because our brains are full of modernism, and
Totally.
so if you take this old thing and you do it in a way that helps me translate, I'm actually going to like probably like it better. So that's one of the reasons why Shakespeare gets done the way it does. But because we're in theater and people love gimmicks, and a lot of people are in theater who should not be in theater, and a lot of people in theater, like people in any other field, are very lazy. There's a lot of theater out there that has no why. There's no why. And you always need a why. So unfortunately, a lot of these interpretations are literally like, well, I'm doing this Shakespeare play and I'm putting Hamlet on the moon because it's cool, or because like I want to have these costumes, or I think it'll look cool, or oh, I think people will be like really intrigued. But there's no actual like integral thinking of like, okay, I'm putting Hamlet on the moon because I feel like he's isolated and there's no air, or like whatever the hell. Like people just do shit. They don't have reasons. And so there's a lot of bad theater out there because
Yeah.
there's no why. There's just like, oh, we put this concept on it
Right.
and we think we're fucking cool. And so to me, one of the reasons why I'm like, I would not call Toni Morrison's Desdemona like a reimagining, is because I think it's a totally different play. You know, I don't think it's like an Othello concept. I think it's a totally different play. And I think it is a conversation about Othello, a clapback, if you will.
Yeah,
You know,
totally,
like
totally. I yeah, I mean, the conversation with it, I feel like is really important. And you know, like I feel like the role that productions of Othello now, or any Shakespeare play for that matter, have to be part of that conversation too, in choosing like how you're going to put it on. As you were just saying, like putting it on the moon, it doesn't really do much.
right.
Like there's no, you're not bringing out the conversation that is critical in it, like, or that you can make about it, you know, or question it or push and say, why, you know, why are we going to put it on like this? Like, you know, I mean, in Othello, Iago, he's such an archetypal villain, you know, and there's so he's so like this whole deception, it's based on like it's so based on all these like deeply racist tropes too, and then just to like uh I don't know, just to put it on uncritically is almost dangerous. It feels like it could be, you
I'm
know,
not
or like
sure
without a
Othello is
conversation.
treated more terribly. Well, first of all, Othello is about a bunch of racist people. So I feel like when people are like, oh, Othello, I'm just like, are you assuming that Shakespeare didn't find these characters racist? Because that's a weird assumption. Are
Mhm.
you assuming that Shakespeare did not think Iago was racist? Because I think Shakespeare very clearly paints Iago as racist.
Yeah.
I think Shakespeare very clearly paints the Duke as racist. I think Shakespeare was like, these motherfuckers are racist.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I think it's
totally.
a play about a bunch of racist people who
Right.
gaslight a black man and he goes crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't see what's wrong with that play.
I mean, as long as I guess Othello's treated as a sympathetic character,
I mean,
right?
how could he not be?
I feel the
The
same
fucking
way.
play is
I feel
called
like the same way.
Othello.
That's
Like
true.
it's his play. It ain't
And yet,
Iago.
you know, and yet he gets like fewer lines than Iago. Like he's the only title character of any play to like his story is like his story gets framed by everybody else around him, you know, and like he gets pushed and like to
So
like
does Hamlet's. I'm
yeah.
sorry.
No, you're
Like
right. No, fair enough. That's I think that's fair. I like um I think that's an important take. Like it's a really good take. Um, but were this is going back to a way earlier question, but like when you were putting it on, were these some of the kinds of conversations you were having with your troupe, with your director?
not really. We didn't need to have those conversations. Everybody was very clear. Like, you know, when you go into a room with a bunch of really smart people who are anti-racist themselves,
Mhm.
and this was a room full of very smart people who were anti-racist. You know, there might have been a few older cast members who like weren't as on the ball, but even they were like, if not anti-racist, at least allies, you know?
Right, right.
No, it was it was a really well chosen room. Jonathan Mumby was not there to play around, and he also let me assist with casting. And we were
Mhm.
really able to put together a room full of people that are not just like good at saying words and looking nice on stage, because I think it takes a certain acumen and a certain attitude. Like if this is what we do as directors. Like, if you really want to do something right, you have to really be extremely conscientious in creating the room, like in who's in the room. And so it matters like what they think and what their attitudes are and what their personality, like it actually matters what their fucking politics are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you put your room together correctly, then you don't really have to worry about that, because when you're just like, okay, so this is this, right? Everybody's like, yeah, totally. And then you just move on. Like, you know, and you don't have to spend as much time. But what is wonderful about the process at Chicago Shakespeare Theater is you spend a week at table, and that doesn't happen really anywhere else. And so, yeah, like, of course we had those conversations. It just didn't go like, well, we have to bring in an EDI person to like lecture you and tell you about things. Like, no, we were having conversations from a place where everybody was at the same place when we started this conversation. You know, everybody feels the same way.
Yeah.
So we're having conversations about like, wow, these racist people, like, I wonder what, you know, like, we're talking about dramaturgy and geography and like language and all that stuff, because it was already presupposed that we were talking about these racist characters.
Yeah. And so much of that has to do with like the creating of the room. And you mentioned earlier, like part of like what drew you to that production was also like having that conversation with Jonathan Munby beforehand and being able to talk with him about it and like get to like I don't know, start to build that rapport with like choosing the people, you know, talking with your casting crew like beforehand and like building that kind of trust beforehand before you sign up for projects. Is that a rare thing? Do people just get thrown together sometimes? Like, do some like or usually there's like a lot of conversation?
Yeah, I think it's rare. I can't really say too much what other people do, but it's certainly, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. So it certainly seems like that's what a lot of other people do. And, you know, I was an actor primarily for 15 years. So, I mean, I know nobody was talking to me about how I felt about anything.
Wow.
At an audition, like hardly ever. The only person who ever really did was David Cromer. And now we see where David Cromer is. So,
but I mean, you do it that way, and maybe, you know, it's significant, you know, that you're a real trailblazer in like how in the productions you put on and how you put on the productions in like the you know, making space for black theater makers and like stories that would otherwise be pushed to the margins. So I think that's really cool.
Thank you.
And I think it's really cool that you can do that in Chicago too. I mean, Chicago theater.
Honestly, I'm not sure where else I would do it. Chicago is a great place to do that. I mean, we're essentially like the pinnacle of theater activism is in Chicago. Like, the whole country is looking at us and was looking at us all last year, particularly, to sort of say something and lead the way. And like, you know, and now I'm just hoping that we can that we have follow through, you know, because it's I wouldn't say easy to speak up. It's not easy, but it is immediate, and it's something that you can do and do in an immediate way. What is not as immediate is the making of the change, like being the change that you are calling for and like helping with the building of that. So that's what I'm looking forward to here in Chicago, is like hoping that everyone that has, I mean, whatever, you know, we started this story with me being like, I didn't want to complain. So
yeah, no,
like, I don't like that. I don't like it in myself, and I don't like it in anyone else. So obviously I'm just like, if you're gonna complain, are you ready to make the thing?
Yeah.
Otherwise, shut the fuck up.
Well, anyways, yeah, thank you for your time, and for, you know, on a Friday afternoon, it's nice out, you know, you got other things.
I'm about to get out there. You do the same, okay, Eli?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being so open. I reached out to a lot of people, and I got a lot of not any responses. So I'm also glad that you were so like.
Nah, I like to help y'all. All right.
Thanks.
All right, Eli, you take care, okay?
Yeah, you too. All
All
right.
right,
So
bye.
long.